Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this session on public policy. We are live from Azim Premji University, Bangalore. It's 1 p.m. IST, and today we are going to specifically answer your questions on careers in public policy. My name is Raj Gopal, and we have Dr. Srikrishna also here with me. Extremely happy to have you all for this session. Before we start answering questions, let me first introduce Srikrishna to you all. Dr. Srikrishna is our faculty at the School of Policy and Governance, and he also anchors the Master of Arts in Public Policy and Governance program here at Azim Premji University. He teaches various courses both for the MPG program as well as MA Development program. He teaches courses of Introduction to Public Policy, Program Evaluation, and related to governance courses. People who joined us, if you would like to ask any question, you would see a chat window called Say Something. So type in your question. We'll take it one by one as it comes. Right? Hello, hi Arpit. Thanks for joining. Krishna, before we talk about careers in public policy, that's the topic for the day. Could you briefly talk about how do we, when I say we, how do we, Azim Premji University, look at public policy as a subject or an area of academic inquiry? Let's start with that, and then we will move on.
Sure. So thanks, Rajgopal, for the introduction. I guess if you want to understand what public policy is very broadly, it's basically, I guess, the knowledge you require to fill a gap between the world as it is,
right,
and the world as you want it to be. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the kind of knowledge you require to aspire to a world that you envision for yourself? Mm-hmm. Now that gap can be to fix problems of the past, mm-hmm. or that gap to be to eliminate problems in the future. Right? So to fill these gaps, or to contribute to public policy and to generate something of public value, mm-hmm. You do require an understanding of several disciplines. You require understanding of law, mm-hmm. of the scarcity of resources, of management, and these have typically informed, of economics. These have typically informed public policy programs. But we also realize now that we also need to know more about the communities that we work with, mm-hmm. The power and authority of many decision makers, mm-hmm. and what do we know of our experience from the past. Another thing that I want to say is that typically public policy was basically a program to help you get into governments, mm-hmm. Especially local governments in the West, as county or budget managers. And at that time it was called, the discipline used to be called public administration. But now governments always work with other organizations, mm-hmm. like people who work in as profit organizations or as social enterprises or as non-governments, and they require a wider range of knowledge beyond public administration and management, and therefore we offer courses called public policy.
So that probably answers why to understand the knowledge is gathered from various disciplines of social sciences.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Srikrishna, for that. So I see the questions coming in. Hello, Charan, Ritesh, and Arpit for joining. Let's jump. I think yes, straight away start ask that question, which is the topic of the day. Rather than answering what type of jobs, what are the various kind of opportunities available after?
So let me say that careers in public policy in India are growing, and they're only going to grow. Mm-hmm. So I should let me kind of give you a list of the kinds of careers, mm-hmm. that one can do within public policy. Mm-hmm. I won't be speaking about jobs, mm-hmm. but I will be speaking about careers or job types. Right? The first kind of career that immediately comes to mind is a career in program evaluation.
Okay.
By that I mean, many a time if you want to propose a new policy, you need to know, or a new program, you need to know what has been our experience from the past, right? If it is a new sanitation program, we need to understand how have earlier sanitation programs worked and what do we need to improve, right? And that space is called program evaluation. We need to know what impacts various governments have had, who has it benefited, how has it benefited them, and therefore what works and what should we expand on.
Okay.
There are many organizations in India, some of you might know about them, they're called like JPAL or Sambodhi or ID Insight and Praxis. These are some organizations that specialize in the area of program evaluation. Right?
Does it also mean after the evaluation they can feed back into policy changes?
Yes, so the next step, so program evaluation as a career or as an intellectual form of inquiry is a retrospective exercise to understand what happened in the past, to help us build a better future.
Right.
Now, a prospective kind of a career or prospective exercise are of three kinds. One is what you would call a policy analyst, right? The first one is program evaluation. The second one is called a policy analyst. This is in this kind of a role is essentially to help governments decide amongst a bunch of alternatives, right? For example, suppose in Bangalore city there are several traffic choke points, right? There are traffic jams in Bangalore city. The government has to decide whether they should use traffic lights, or they should deploy more policemen, which is new recruitment, or whether they should enhance the quality, the quantum of public transport or private transport.
Or a separate track for buses.
Or a separate track for buses, right? Or wait for a long time and set up a metro rail, right? Now these choices the governments can decide, but the world has become so complex that they need new and better information, right? A policy analyst can help the decision maker decide, right? Using a certain standard set of techniques. Let me give you another example. So, Gujarat, for example, you must have heard in the news, has had, there's been the spread, or at least in the news reports, there's a spread of what is called the Zika virus, right? And obviously, this is a problem that can, become larger as an epidemic in the future. We do know that there might very well be some vaccinations to immunize us from the threat of the Zika virus, and so there might be some person some government or some decision maker who would like to know how much money is required, what is the cost, how many people can we cover, how much time will it require to eliminate this particular epidemic. Now,
I think let's take a. I think a lot of questions coming in. So you spoke about program evaluation, then you spoke about policy analysis or a policy analyst.
Yes.
Let's see the questions coming in, and then we'll continue.
Sure. Yeah.
Charan, we are answering your question. What type of jobs can we expect in the? This is specifically question in the government sector. We'll come to that. I will take Arpit's question whether this program will allow graduates to work with policy makers and legislatures in the future.
So I'm going to come to that. I'll be answering Arpit's question in another 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I've laid out two kinds of roles, right? A role in program evaluation, a role as a policy analyst. There is a third role, which is probably the most conventional role, which is the role of a project or a program manager, right? Okay. Now, it is quite obvious that all governments, anyone who's familiar with how the government functions, is that governments don't work in isolation. They work with a variety of, let's say, hospitals or third parties, or they work with market organizations. They work with NGOs, and now it requires someone who is not just familiar with the sector, but is also familiar with working or managing these various collaborative arrangements, right, to deliver a particular government service. This would require things like stakeholder management, some form of understanding contracts. It would require abilities of strategic planning, understanding organizational theory, and so on. Now, project management as a space has typically been understood, has typically been available in the non-government sector, right? Many jobs, like in the NGO sector, but this is opening up as young professional options also in the government. It's just a window that's opening up. Like, for example, the Maharashtra government and the Madhya Pradesh government and the Haryana government are offering what are called governance fellowships. Right? There are certain other organizations such as Swaniti, and there are social corps and the Vision India Foundation that are also offering these kinds of fellowships. So these are fellowships, or these are this role is essentially that of program management or project management. So the three so far is program evaluation, policy analyst, and program management. There's a fourth one. There are essentially five that I can think of. The fourth is about policy advocacy.
Advocacy.
Right. So most policies tend to tend to fix existing problems, but there are many people who want to serve or who are interested in serving underserved populations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That is by underserved populations I mean there are some citizens who suffer from problems that are not a priority for governments, right? These could be issues such as deworming or malnutrition, or it could be prisoners' welfare, it could be animal rights, it could be environment, and so on, right? These kinds of jobs require you to understand laws, require you to understand communities, require you to be able to write very well, because you need to write briefs, memos, you need to write draft campaigns. Now, many organizations also run the space, such as Amnesty and Greenpeace and Blue Cross, the MKSS, the National Alliance of People's Movement, even an organization like Janagraha that works in urban governance. These are areas that they can work in. Within this place of policy advocacy, just to answer Arpit's question, there is a growth of what you can call legislative assistantships. There are many politicians who want to petition for a cause, or who want to bring up a matter for public discussion on the floor of their house, whether it's the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha, and they require certain informed briefs, some background work, right? So there are organizations, like the LAMP Fellowship, and that have emerged that provide these kinds of what you can call legislative assistantship kind of roles. The last one, which I think is important, is what is called policy research. Now, policy research essentially is research. All the previous jobs require you to have some critical thinking and some research ability. The difference in a policy research space is that it is not client driven. It is not to address the immediate needs of a client, but it is in some sense based on setting an agenda for the long term, right? Or better still, having a canvas that goes beyond a specific client's needs. So there are scholars like, let us say, Jean Drèze or Ritika Khera, and many within our own university like Sudhir Krishnaswamy or Harini Nagendra, who make public interventions, who make the cause through journal articles, newspaper op-eds, to bring to the attention of the government and people involved in public affairs of a future agenda, right? Mihir Shah, for example, on water and so on. Right? Now, many people who work in policy research could be employed in universities such as ours, but they are also employed in public government-funded institutions like the ITSA, the Institute of Defence Strategies Analysis, ICRIAR, or the Center for Good Governance in Hyderabad, or they're in quasi-funded organizations such as the Center for Policy Research, or even in private organizations such as the Observer Research Foundation and the World Resources Institute. Right? So just to sum up this, just to give you this idea, there are 4 or 5 roles: program evaluation, policy analysis, project management, policy advocacy, and policy research. But we must know that those who just because you have a public policy degree doesn't necessarily mean that you automatically are employable in these roles, because these roles are serious roles. It's not just about doing a job, but it is about generating public value or contributing to a public purpose. So many of them require substantial work experience before you can contribute to these positions, right? Now, there are lots of people also who have substantial work experience, but they can't think beyond that work experience. So having a public policy degree gives you the required knowledge and the analytical ability and the capacity to think about problems in ways beyond that complement your own work experience. Yeah. So I hope I've given you a sense.
I think that's a good introduction for the first 10 minutes. Let's see whether we have probably answered most of the questions, but we will try to see. So type of jobs we can expect in the government sector. That's what Charan wants to.
So I'm not sure what you mean by government sector, but what jobs do you expect to work with in the government? Like I just mentioned, there are many governance fellowships instituted by the Maharashtra government and the Haryana government, and more recently the Madhya Pradesh government. That is one kind. They are typically, some of them have what are called young professional programs, which are typically tied to World Bank projects. There are also, like I said, these legislative assistantships that are available through something like the LAMP Fellowship, organized by the Center for Policy Research and so on. So those are the kinds of roles that you would typically find.
And Arpit's question, I think probably we have answered whether they get to work with policymakers or legislators. I think we're talking about.
Yes, I think I've just mentioned that you get to work with policymakers. So let me give you an example of a student of ours. She was on a fellowship as part of our winter internship, and she worked with the district collector in the winter I think in Bokaro district, where she was responsible and she was there was I think a government circular issued to the district saying that X person, X student is now a collector fellow, and her job was to do multiple things. Her job one was to help the rural communities use mobile apps, to conduct financial transactions, to work with communities to enhance their need for better sanitation, and to collate a lot of material to help them in building up their website. Right?
Okay.
So yeah, sometimes you do get to work directly with governments, but these are very niche roles. Most roles in public policy is to work indirectly with government at your level as a student. Your mentor or supervisor might be working directly. You won't be working, but you'll be contributing to his work.
Exactly. I was that quick on follow-up question. When you said a collector fellow, is that a decision that the collector has the powers to take fellows, or does the directive come from the government?
It works both ways. In the case of Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh and even Haryana, the cabinet governments have decided that they want young professionals to be populated in various districts of the state to assist the collector in whatever needs he finds. In some other cases, so for example, in some other cases, some organizations, public service organizations, have reached out to collectors, and the collectors have said, yes, I would like a fellow, and so on, right? And then they carve out a role depending on the background of the student.
Fantastic, that's nice. Sonali's question that you have answered, but we'll try to. I think, will the course help to be part of a think tank?
See, like I said, these are roles. Whether you're a part of a think tank and so on is I can say yes and no, right? There are enough reasons to say both. Yes, you can be a part of the think tank if you're interested in policy research. No, if you don't have enough work experience to actually contribute to that cause. But you can be a research assistant in a place like the Center for Policy Research and so on. I think with a undergraduate degree or postgraduate degree, that should be possible. But it is not. I just want to caution again and again that it's a public. The degree doesn't necessarily guarantee you a space. It creates an opportunity for you, right? As it does for many others as well.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah? That's correct. Ritesh, thanks for joining. I'll take your question next. Scope of career as an academician in this domain.
So by that I assume that you want to be a professor of public policy or a professor of so to become an academic you need a PhD, right? There are many universities in abroad, not yet in India, who are offering doctoral programs in public policy or public administration. So yes, there is a career, and I think, in fact, to be quite honest, two of our students who have just graduated have accepted research assistantships as academics. One in a university in Gujarat and another in a university in Bangalore. So yes, absolutely. Some also, just to add to that, some have accepted research fellowships with some other universities. So it's very much possible.
Thank you. So if there are more questions, please do type in. We had also received a lot of questions offline, so I'll probably go through one by one. You spoke about the need for having theoretical frameworks to understand the public policy in detail, but how do we blend this theory with field or practice in the program?
Let me probably first flag this idea of theory and practice, and then I'll come to the idea of the field. Right? Many of you might wonder, the course seems very theoretical, or and so on, and there's while you only want to work in the grassroots, I don't think they're separate or they're distinct. I think it's an artificial dichotomy. The way I've tried to convey this is that, while work experience gives you the capacity to practice, theory gives you the capacity to think. It's like this. It's very easy to sing a Bollywood song, on karaoke, and you can sing it again and again. But just because you sing a Bollywood song or several Bollywood songs does not necessarily mean that you can create your own song, right? You can never. You need some musical training and some musical aptitude to be creative and create your own Bollywood song, right? So theory is that space. You can and practice or work experience is the Bollywood song version of it, right? Now, so that's how I kind of say it. And in other words, the capacity to think helps you improve upon what you've been able to do in the past. Without that, it's lucky if you can learn to innovate. How do we blend our theory and practice with the field? We work very intensively with many organizations across sectors and across India as part of our internships. Let me give you an example. There is a particular organization that works on urban governance in Bangalore. This particular organization, the cabinet was tasked, gave this organization, asked them to file a report about how do we make Bangalore, be better governable as a city, as it were. The way they felt it could be done was that if they could bring about, provide better amenities to some underserved populations within Bangalore. The research for that in certain slums of Bangalore was done by our students. And they submitted a report. That report has been given to the particular supervisor of that institute, and that in turn has been given to the Karnataka government, right? Let me give you another example. There was another of our students who are part of a project with a consulting firm and Pradhan, one of the largest NGOs in the livelihood sector, about how do we improve the capacity of rural governance, panchayat institutions in the local level. I think that research is still ongoing. There are many areas where our students we tend to work, where we collaborate with a variety of organizations as donors, as in the social enterprises, with NGOs, with research institutes, and so on. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think there are some more questions that are coming.
Yeah, I can see them.
So we'll take Ritesh's question asking, do we provide mentoring or support for?
So I can answer that very lightly. So you're wondering whether the university provides any mentoring or support for PhD admissions. We train you in the postgraduate program, and your performance in the program will reflect your opportunities in the PhD, school, as it were. We don't guide you. The PhD is not an exam. It's a series of steps where you have to have reference letters, seriousness of purpose, and so on. So yes, informally, if we know you as a student, we can suggest some ways that you can go. But I don't think it's a formal idea that we recruit you to do an MA so that you can do a PhD. I mean, that doesn't. We are here. We want you to apply here and become a student so that you can contribute to the public cause. Right? That's how we look at it.
Thank you. We'll take Rohan's question also next. I think that this was in one of the questions which I had in my list. What would the first job be like? Because we just after completing.
So I think the question is slightly misframed. Like, if only doing this doesn't make you employable. I said only doing a course of public policy and governance doesn't necessarily mean that your first job is in public policy and governance. Your first job will very well be in a much wider market, in the area of development, or in the area of security, or in the area of something much larger, right? So your first job will definitely be a job typically that most graduates would have, where you need to gain the experience of working in a sector or on the field or in a particular place. I never said that you will not be employable. You will be employable. You might not be employable in this particular role or the roles that are laid out as your first job. Right? Just to add to that, I think 97 or 97% or so of our students have all been employed over the past 5-6 years. So they're all employed. They might not be employed in their first job. Need not be a public policy job. They're definitely employed, and they're well employed in some very prestigious NGOs and prestigious social enterprises. Some of them even in consulting firms and so on. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Hopefully that has answered your question, Rohan. If there are more questions, please do type in. And could you also explain, since we are talking about theory and practice connect, how are the internships and the field work designed here?
So the internships have a step-by-step exercise, or our field is exercised as a step-by-step exercise. That the way we look at it is, the way you need to work in the field is, you need to first identify a problem. Right? Only when you understand a problem and the people involved or that cause the problem and so on, that would in turn, right, help you draft a better policy in the long run. So we start with what is called a problem identification exercise. Once you've identified a problem, identified the stakeholders, mapped out the decision makers, then the next question is to identify or evaluate particular interventions or solutions associated to address the challenges that problem has, right? And so the next internship is essentially to identify at the programmatic level, what could be a particular intervention or a program that you think would help solve that particular problem.
Okay.
And once you've identified a particular intervention, or you've and mapped out a problem, how do we explain this at a systemic level, or what you think as a policy? These are the 3 steps that we've essentially laid out are our objectives to be achieved. All of them have so far, and we will continue to do so in several other ways, have always involved collaborating with external organizations, right, who work in public affairs.
Right. Thank you. I will take Arpit's question asking, will there be support from the university in various ways to do research and research methodologies? I think that's part of the course. That's one of the core courses.
Yes, so Mr. Goel, I don't know whether you're a part of the incoming group of students or not, but for those who are incoming and who are potentially interested to be a part of the program, we have a brochure which actually tells you exactly what you will be doing in which course every week of the next 2 years. So you have 104 weeks of all the coursework that is available, right? Yes, you have a 1.5 year methodological sequence where you will learn a variety of statistical and qualitative techniques that can help you in your research. Right?
Thank you.
Miss Aishwarya Salvi, you're saying that so if you're a law student and would like to work in the field of legal reforms, there are clearly enough legal research, legal policy research institutions such as the Alternative Law Forum and the Vidhi Center, and there are many others that work in and Amnesty, for example. One of our faculty colleagues, Srikrishna Swami, he works on legal system reforms. So there are many employment opportunities, I'm sure, that are available in this field. Let me add, just this thing for those potential law students who are aspiring for a public policy program. Now that you have a degree in law and you're basically a licensed lawyer, what gives you an edge with the public policy degree is essentially the fact that you can now use alternate methodologies to explain the same problem. In other words, you can use now statistics, you can write better, you can learn from other disciplines to become a better lawyer, right? So that, I think, is quite is a very potent combination to be a lawyer and get a public policy degree.
When you said lawyer, that reminds me of another question that we keep getting is somebody who has done engineering, having worked for some other sector. It could be on the production shop floor or in the area of information technology, and they feel, are they changing the track? Coming into public policy, will they be able to understand? Because they think it's social sciences, it's not an area that they've dealt with in their undergraduate degree. Any thoughts, comments?
Sure. So if your question, Raj Gopal, is that I've done in engineering and now I want to move here, am I changing my track? Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. Just because you got your earlier degree in X and you're now getting a degree in Y, you forgot what you learned in X. I mean, it's a bit like saying that, I used to be a great swimmer, now I'm a great cyclist, and because I'm a great cyclist, I've forgotten how to swim. For me, I think what it is better to understand that you're actually changing the direction in which you can contribute, and you will always apply what you have learned from your past as and when you require it, right? It doesn't go away. You're just changing the direction where you would like to contribute. With a public policy degree, you get the opportunity to contribute more directly than you would in an alternative job.
Yeah, I just use engineering as, and the theme is probably applicable for somebody who's done agriculture or fisheries or other questions also. Thank you. I think Rohan is still not
very happy
to have the answers. He just want to know what is the kind of work I could get most probably. Maybe we can talk about kind of
Mr.
work
Moore. Sure, there are a variety of NGOs and who work in nutrition, who work in education, who work in livelihoods. There are social enterprises that work in renewable energy. There are policy research institutions that do program evaluation. There are some who have moved on to work in urban governance. This really depends on your interests. I must sort of explain that the university is not interested, or let me put it this way. The university, we are not creating a program whereby we are saying, come here, we'll get you a job. All we're saying to you is, come here, if at all you choose to come here, we'll give you the foundation necessary to find a job on your own. Right? So, Mr. Rohan, I even if I knew what type of work you could get, I don't know, because I don't know you. But even if I did, I wouldn't, because I think that would limit the number of possibilities you can explore for yourself.
Correct. That's exactly, yeah. It'll get limited and only to that area. So do come here and then let's explore. So we have almost finished 30 minutes into the conversation of the live chat. Thank you for sending across this interesting questions. I'm also learning, by the way, through those questions. So if you have more questions, please do type in. Otherwise, I have a couple of questions to ask about. It's not exactly related to the career, but in general, what do you think could be the challenges in working in this sector per se? So is there, as compared to working in a service sector or some other kind of job that keeps coming multiple times?
So one thing that I think, I guess the challenge that you would find is the underestimation of the kind of work you would be required to do. People generally think that working in the public policy area is very glamorous. It sounds great to be a policy analyst, or but frankly, it is a lot about rolling up your sleeves, because public problems are very complex things. And we always tend to underestimate, the challenges that are involved in dealing with such problems. So that's I think one challenge. If you like such challenges, this is definitely a role, because you can contribute to public affairs in this way. Yeah, I don't know how many of you, but pay is important. The way I view pay or salary is to basically keep my body and soul together and keep it without having to worry about it too much. So yeah, if you have that kind of a mindset that I'm happy with what I get, or I make do with what I get, as long as I can take care of all my basic necessities and a little bit more. But what is more important to me is to have a satisfying career, a career of my choice. Then I think you would find that as something which is fulfilling. I'm sure there are many challenges. There are challenges of working in rural areas. There are challenges of being sympathetic to communities. There are challenges of dealing with a variety of biases. There are challenges of being heard by the government. The government itself might not want to listen to you. So it's a long, hard road.
Right, got it. Thank you. So if there are no more questions, I think in the next 5-10 minutes we will wrap up this live chat. Otherwise, if you want to understand more about, I think he has spoken about. So the talk is about careers in public policy. I'm just summarizing where we started. We spoke about program evaluation. Second one being a role of a policy analyst would play. third one being a project or a program manager, area of policy advocacy, which is required, and he also spoke about policy research. So
That's correct.
these are the 5 areas or the 5 job types we've broadly discussed. Any more questions? I can see there are a lot of you are watching this now. If there anything else that we should be talking, please do. Any closing remarks, Srikrishna, that you want to add into this, which we have not?
Sure. My sense is that if you're interested in a multidisciplinary approach to solve or meet the challenges of in public affairs, a public policy program is the program that you should think about. It is definitely much more. I come from a political science background, and I've been studying political science for quite a long time. So I have a sense of what it is to learn in an orthodox discipline. But if you're interested to contribute to public affairs, and you're interested in learning disciplines that go beyond your own undergraduate background, then I think a public policy program would be worth your while.
Thank you all for watching. Thanks for sending those interesting questions. Srikrishna, thank you for your time doing this. Thanks to the team working behind the scenes. So we'll be back again with more themes around development, education, public policy and governance. Till then, goodbye and good luck. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.